The warning alarm screamed through the bridge of the UES Valiant as Commander Lisa Martinez gripped her chair. Red lights flashed everywhere, and the ship shook like it was being torn apart. She could smell smoke and burning metal in the air. Enemy. "Ships coming out of hyperspace," shouted Lieutenant Jake Morrison from his station. His hands moved fast over the controls, trying to get the shields up. 6 Cathari vessels, maybe more. They came out of nowhere. Lisa felt her stomach drop. The Cathari were supposed to be far from this sector. This was supposed to be a safe run to the outer colonies. They were carrying important information about peace talks, not heading into a war zone. "Get me a channel to the Guardian and Defender," Lisa ordered. Those were her escort ships, smaller but fast. "We need to work together on this." The ship shook again as green plasma beams hit their hull. Through the main screen, Lisa could see the Cathari ships. They looked like black sharks with glowing red eyes. Each one was twice the size of her ship, and they moved like they knew exactly where to hit. "Communication with the escorts is breaking up," reported Danny Torres from his station. His young face was pale with fear. "I think the Guardian took a direct hit to their communication array." Lisa watched the battle through the main screen. The Guardian tried to turn and run, but 3 Cathari ships followed it. Bright green beams cut through space and hit the human ship. She saw the Guardian's hull crack open like an egg. Air and debris shot out into space. The ship went dark and started spinning slowly. "No," Lisa whispered. There were 80 people on the Guardian, good people with families back home. "Shields down to 30%, Jake called out. "We can't take much more of this beating." The Defender lasted a little longer. Captain Roberts was smart and kept his ship moving, but the Cathari had too, many ships and better weapons. Lisa watched helplessly as the Defender tried to protect the Valiant by flying between them and the enemy. It worked for maybe 2 minutes. Then 5 plasma beams hit the Defender at the same time. The ship just disappeared in a ball of white light. "All escort ships destroyed," Danny said quietly. His hands were shaking as he worked his controls. "We're alone out here." Lisa felt something cold in her chest. This wasn't a random attack. The Cathari knew exactly where to find them. Someone had told them about this mission. Someone had sold them out. "Lisa, we have a problem," came Amy Collins' voice over the communication system. Amy was their chief engineer, down in the engine room. "The fusion reactor is going crazy. I can keep it stable for maybe 10 more minutes. After that, we're dead in space." Another hit rocked the ship. This time sparks flew from Danny's station. He cried out and fell backward, blood running down his face. Lisa could see that part of his head was burned badly. He wasn't moving. "Jake, can you get us out of here?" Lisa asked. "Jump drive is damaged," Jake replied. "We can't run." His station exploded in a shower of sparks. Jake screamed and hit the floor. Lisa could see his clothes were on fire. The Cathari ships moved closer. They weren't trying to destroy the Valiant quickly. They were taking their time, making sure it couldn't escape. Lisa realized they wanted something. Maybe prisoners to question. Maybe the information in the ship's computer. The information. Lisa suddenly remembered why this mission was so important. In the ship's secure vault, they had proof that the Cathari were working with the Vex Empire. The Vex were another alien race that hated humans. If they were working together, it meant big trouble for all human colonies. Earth needed to know about this alliance. "All hands, this is the captain," Lisa said into the ship's communication system. "Prepare for emergency procedures. We're going to make them think we're destroyed." Lisa's plan was crazy, but it might work. She started the self-destruct countdown, then immediately stopped it. The explosion would be small but bright enough to fool the Cathari sensors for a while. At the same time, she shut down all the ship's power except for basic life support. The Valiant would look like a dead Hulk floating in space. The fake explosion worked. The Cathari ships stopped firing and moved closer to look at the wreckage. Lisa held her breath and watched their ships through the emergency periscope. After a few minutes, most of the Cathari fleet moved away, but 3 ships stayed behind. She could see small ships leaving those vessels, heading for the Valiant. Boarding parties. "Amy, are you still alive down there?" Lisa whispered into her communication device. "Barely," came Amy's weak voice. "My legs are trapped under some metal, can't move, but I'm alive." "Good." I need you to listen carefully. I'm going to try to get that information to Earth. But first I need to deal with our visitors. Lisa looked around the bridge. Jake was unconscious but breathing. Danny wasn't moving at all. The other bridge crew were either dead or badly hurt. The ship was dark except for the red emergency lights. It felt like being inside a tomb. She could hear sounds from other parts of the ship now. Metal cutting through metal. The Cathari were coming inside. They would search every room looking for survivors and information. Lisa had maybe 20 minutes. Before they reached the bridge, Lisa opened the weapons locker and took out a pistol. It felt heavy in her hands. She had trained with weapons, but she had never killed anyone before. Today might be different. The sounds were getting closer. Lisa could hear the Cathari talking to each other in their strange language. It sounded like animals growling. She knew that the Cathari thought humans were weak and stupid. They were about to learn that sometimes, when humans had nothing left to lose, they became very dangerous. Lisa turned off her communication device so the enemy couldn't track her voice. She took one last look at her crew, her friends who had trusted her to keep them safe. She had failed them, but she wouldn't fail the mission. The information about the Cathari Vex Alliance had to reach Earth no matter what it cost. She crawled toward the maintenance shaft that led to the lower decks. The hunting was about to begin, but the Cathari didn't know that they weren't the only hunters on this ship. Lisa crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft, trying not to make any sound. The metal was cold against her hands and she could feel pieces of broken glass cutting through her uniform. The ship was completely dark except for the weak red emergency lights that flickered on and off. Behind her she could hear the Cathari moving through the bridge. They were talking in their growling language, probably confused about why they couldn't find any living humans. Their footsteps were heavy and slow. Lisa knew that Cathari were big, maybe 7 feet tall with thick scales instead of skin. They were strong, but they weren't very smart. The maintenance shaft led down to the engineering section. Lisa needed to check on Amy and see if there was any way to fix the ship's communication system. If she could send a message to Earth about the Cathari Vex Alliance, maybe her crew wouldn't have died for nothing. The engineering section was a mess. Pipes had broken and were spraying steam everywhere. Broken glass covered the floor and several small fires were burning in the corners. Lisa found Amy trapped under a heavy metal beam near the main control panel. "Amy, can you hear me?" Lisa whispered. Amy's eyes opened slowly. Her face was very pale and there was blood on her lips. "Lisa, I thought you were dead." "Not yet. How bad are you hurt?" Amy tried to move but winced in pain. "My legs are crushed. I can't feel them anymore. But that's not the worst part." She pointed to a screen near her head. "The reactor is going to blow up in about 4 hours. I tried to fix it, but I can't reach the controls." Lisa looked at the screen. Numbers were flashing red, showing that the fusion reactor was getting hotter and more unstable. If it exploded, it would destroy everything within 10 miles, including any Cathari ships that were still nearby. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," Lisa said quietly. "What do you mean?" "If the reactor blows up, it takes the Cathari with us. They won't be able to report back to their fleet about what happened here." Amy shook her head. "But the mission information, you need to get that to Earth." Lisa had almost forgotten about the vault. The important data about the enemy alliance was locked in a secure room near the ship's center. But with the ship damaged and crawling with Cathari soldiers, getting there would be almost impossible. "There might be another way," Amy said weakly. "The emergency beacon. If you can get to the communication array on the outside of the ship, you can send a message directly to Earth. It won't carry much information, but it might be enough." "Where's the communication array?" "Top of the ship. You'd have to go outside. In a spacesuit." Amy coughed and more blood came out. "But the array might be damaged, and you'd have to cross the outside of the ship while the Cathari are looking for survivors." Lisa thought about it. A spacewalk across a damaged ship while alien soldiers hunted for her inside. It sounded impossible. But humans were good at doing impossible things. "Amy, I need the access codes for the beacon system." Amy told her the codes, speaking slowly and carefully. Then she grabbed Lisa's arm. There's something else. Carl set up the internal defense system before he died. The computer is still hunting any Cathari that come inside the ship. It might help you. Carl Thompson had been their security chief. He was smart and always prepared for trouble. Lisa felt a little hope. Maybe she wasn't completely alone on this ship. Lisa found a spacesuit in the emergency locker. It belonged to Paul Rivera, who had been their navigation officer. Paul was dead now, like most of her crew. The suit was damaged with several small holes, but it might hold together long enough for a short spacewalk. She put on the suit carefully, checking all the seals. The oxygen tank was only half full, maybe 30 minutes of air if she was lucky. She would have to work fast. The airlock was on the same deck as engineering. Lisa made her way there quietly, listening for any sounds of Cathari search teams. She could hear them on other decks, breaking down doors and searching rooms. Sometimes she heard the sound of the defense turrets firing. Carl's system was still working. The outer door of the airlock opened to show the black space around the ship. Lisa could see the 3 Cathari vessels floating nearby, their red lights blinking slowly. They looked like sleeping monsters. Beyond them, she could see the wreckage of the Guardian and Defender, twisted metal drifting in the darkness. Lisa stepped out onto the ship's hull. The communication array was about 200 meters away, near the top of the ship. She would have to climb over damaged sections and avoid the debris that was floating around the wreckage. And she had to do it all while staying hidden from the Cathari sensors. The journey across the hull was a nightmare. Pieces of metal floated everywhere, some of them sharp enough to cut through her damaged spacesuit. Several times Lisa had to stop and patch small holes with emergency tape. The oxygen gauge on her suit was dropping fast. Halfway to the communication array, Lisa saw something that made her heart stop. One of the Cathari ships was moving. It was turning toward the civilian colony at New Denver. Lisa checked her watch. The colony was only 4 hours away from the Cathari position. If they left now, they could reach New Denver and attack it before any human military ships could respond. 3 million people lived at New Denver. Families, children, old people. They had no idea that death was coming for them. Lisa had to warn them somehow. She reached the communication array and found that it was badly damaged but still working. Lisa connected her suit's computer to the array and started typing the emergency message. She had to keep it short because her oxygen was almost gone and the transmission power was weak. The message said, "Cathari fleet attacking New Denver. Send military ships immediately. Cathari working with Vex Empire. Proof in Valiant Computer Vault." Lisa sent the message toward Earth and prayed that someone would receive it in time. Then she started the dangerous journey back to the airlock. Behind her, she could see the Cathari ship moving away toward New Denver. She had maybe 3 hours before they reached the colony. Back inside the ship, Lisa took off the spacesuit and checked her pistol. The emergency beacon might save New Denver, but it wouldn't stop the Cathari from destroying other human colonies. She needed to get the complete information from the ship's vault and find a way to deliver it to Earth. But first, she had some alien visitors to deal with. Lisa could hear them getting closer to the engineering section. It was time to show the Cathari why humans were dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. Lisa hid in the shadows near the engineering entrance, watching 3 Cathari soldiers search through the wreckage. They were bigger than she had expected, with dark green scales and glowing yellow eyes. Each one carried a weapon that looked like it could cut through steel. They moved slowly, checking every corner for survivors. The closest Cathari was examining Amy's body. Lisa felt anger burn in her chest. Amy had been a good friend and the best engineer in the fleet. She didn't deserve to die like this. None of her crew did. Lisa remembered what Amy had told her about Carl's defense system. The computer was still active, still hunting for enemies. If she could get to a control panel, maybe she could use the ship's own weapons against the Cathari. She waited until the 3 aliens moved deeper into engineering, then crawled to a maintenance panel near the door. The screen was cracked but working. Lisa typed in Carl's security codes and found the defense system menu. The ship had several automated turrets that could fire at targets inside the corridors. Lisa selected the engineering section on the map and activated 3 turrets. Immediately, she heard the sound of weapons firing and Cathari voices screaming in pain and surprise. 2 of the aliens died quickly. The third one tried to run but didn't make it far. The sound of weapons fire brought more Cathari running. Lisa could hear them talking to each other in their growling language. They sounded confused and scared. Good. Scared enemies made mistakes. Lisa used the defense system to track the Cathari teams throughout the ship. There were 12 aliens total, spread across 4 decks. Most of them were searching for survivors, but 2 were trying to break into the computer vault where the mission information was stored. She couldn't let them get that information. If the Cathari learned about human military plans, they could attack dozens of colonies before anyone could stop them. Lisa activated more turrets and started hunting the enemy teams one by one. The internal weapons weren't very powerful, but they were a surprise. The Cathari hadn't expected a dead ship to fight back. Lisa used this advantage to eliminate 6 more aliens over the next hour. The remaining Cathari became paranoid, jumping at every shadow and firing at anything that moved. But Lisa knew she couldn't hide forever. The defense turrets were running out of ammunition and the Cathari were learning to avoid them. She needed a better plan. Lisa made her way to the science lab where Helen Parker had been working before the attack. Helen had been developing new weapons for human ships, trying to find ways to fight the superior Cathari technology. Maybe some of her experiments were still usable. The science lab was mostly destroyed, but Lisa found several prototype weapons in a secured cabinet. Helen had been working on plasma rifles that could punch through Cathari armor. The prototypes were unstable and dangerous to use, but they were more powerful than anything Lisa had available. She tested one of the plasma rifles on a piece of metal debris. The weapon cut through it like butter, but the energy discharge was so bright it hurt her eyes, and the rifle was very hot after just 1 shot. Lisa would have to be careful not to kill herself while using Helen's weapons. Armed with the plasma rifles, Lisa began a more aggressive campaign against the remaining Cathari. She used the ship's ventilation system to move around unseen, then ambushed the aliens when they least expected it. The first Cathari died before he knew what hit him. The second one had time to scream, which brought his friends running right into Lisa's trap. By the end of the second hour, only 3 Cathari were left alive on the ship. But these 3 were smart and careful. They had grouped together near the computer vault and were taking turns guarding while the others worked on breaking through the security doors. Lisa knew she was running out of time. The emergency beacon she had sent might save New Denver, but there were other colonies that would be attacked later. She needed the complete information from the vault to warn Earth about the full extent of the Cathari-Vex alliance. She decided to take a big risk. Instead of attacking the remaining Cathari on her ship, Lisa would sneak aboard one of their vessels and try to sabotage it from the inside. If she could damage or destroy the Cathari command ship, it might buy enough time for human military forces to respond to her warning. Lisa found an airlock that connected to one of the Cathari ships. The aliens had used it to board the Valiant, so it might still be open. She put on another spacesuit and checked her weapons: 2 plasma rifles, a regular pistol, and several explosive charges that Helen had been developing. The connection between the ships was a tube made of flexible metal. Lisa crawled through it carefully, expecting to find guards on the other side. But the Cathari were focused on searching her ship, not protecting their own. Lisa found herself in what looked like a cargo bay with no enemies in sight. The Cathari ship was different from human vessels. Everything was bigger and darker, designed for creatures with thick scales and good night vision. The corridors were wide enough for 3 humans to walk side by side. Strange symbols were painted on the walls, probably directions or warnings, that Lisa couldn't read. Lisa began her sabotage work methodically. She planted explosive charges near what looked like important systems. She couldn't read the alien writing, but some things were universal. Pipes carrying coolant, electrical cables, computer terminals. She damaged or destroyed everything she could reach. The best target was what appeared to be the ship's main computer core. Lisa used one of Helen's plasma rifles to cut through the protective panels, then planted her largest explosive charge inside. When this went off, it would probably cripple the entire ship. As she worked, Lisa overheard Cathari voices coming from a nearby room. She couldn't understand their language, but she recognized the tone. They were excited about something they had found. Lisa crept closer to listen. Through a crack in the door, she could see several Cathari officers gathered around a communication console. They were talking to someone on another ship, showing them images and data. Lisa realized they were reporting their progress to the fleet commander. Then she saw something on their screens that made her blood turn cold. It wasn't just New Denver that was in danger. The Cathari had a list of 12 human colonies that they planned to attack. And they had a new weapon, something biological that would kill every human on a planet without damaging the buildings or equipment. Lisa understood now why the attack on her ship had been so carefully planned. The Cathari weren't just trying to expand their territory. They were planning to wipe out the human race and take over all their colonies. And they were going to blame the attacks on the Vex Empire, starting a war between the two species while the Cathari took everything. She had to get this information to Earth. But first, she had to make sure these particular Cathari never had the chance to hurt anyone again. Lisa checked the timer on her explosive charges. 15 minutes until they would detonate. Time to get back to her own ship and finish what she had started. Lisa crawled back through the connecting tube between the ships just as alarms began ringing on the Cathari vessel. They had discovered some of her sabotage work. She could hear their voices getting louder and more excited as they found the damaged systems. Back on the Valiant, Lisa had 12 minutes before her explosive charges would destroy the enemy ship. But she still had 3 Cathari soldiers to deal with on her own vessel, and they were still trying to break into the computer vault. She could hear them working on the security doors, their tools cutting through the metal barriers that protected humanity's most important secrets. Lisa decided to take the direct approach. She walked openly down the main corridor toward the vault, carrying both plasma rifles and making no attempt to hide. When the first Cathari saw her, he started to raise his weapon, but Lisa shot him with the plasma rifle before he could aim. The alien's armor melted like butter, and he fell without making a sound. The other 2 Cathari heard the weapon discharge and came running. They were smarter than their friends and tried to attack from different directions. But Lisa had spent hours learning every corner of her ship while they were still trying to figure out the layout. She used her knowledge to stay ahead of them, leading them into a trap she had prepared near the vault entrance. When both aliens entered the corridor, Lisa triggered an explosive charge she had hidden in the ceiling. The explosion brought down several tons of debris, crushing both Cathari instantly. Lisa felt no satisfaction in their deaths. They were just soldiers following orders, like her crew had been. But they were also part of a plan to commit genocide against the human race. With the Cathari eliminated, Lisa opened the vault using her command codes. Inside were dozens of data storage units containing information about Cathari military plans, their alliance with the Vex Empire, and most importantly, details about their biological weapon program. This information could save billions of human lives if it reached Earth in time. Lisa loaded all the data onto a portable storage device just as the explosive charges on the Cathari ship detonated. The blast shook the Valiant and lit up the space around them like a small sun. Through the viewport, Lisa could see pieces of the enemy ship spinning away into the darkness. 1 down, 2 to go. But the explosion had alerted the other Cathari ships. Lisa could see them moving closer to investigate, their weapons powered up and ready to fire. They would board the Valiant again, and this time they would bring more soldiers and better equipment. Lisa had maybe 10 minutes before they arrived. She considered her options. The ship's communication system was too damaged to send the data to Earth directly. The emergency beacon could only carry a short message, not the massive amount of information she had gathered. And even if she could find a way to transmit the data, the Cathari would probably jam or intercept it. That left only one choice. Lisa had to get the information to Earth personally, but the Valiant's engines were destroyed and the jump drive was offline. There was no way to repair them in time. Then Lisa remembered something Amy had said before she died. The fusion reactor was going to explode in a few hours. But what if the explosion could be controlled and directed? What if she could turn the reactor into a weapon that would destroy the remaining Cathari ships? Lisa ran to the engineering section and found Amy's notes on the reactor problem. The fusion containment field was failing, but it was failing slowly and predictably. With the right adjustments, Lisa could speed up the process and focus the explosion in a specific direction. It would be like turning the entire ship into a bomb. She began working on the reactor controls, using Amy's knowledge and her own command training to understand the complex systems. It was dangerous work. One mistake could trigger an immediate explosion that would kill her before she could complete the mission. But Lisa had already accepted that she probably wasn't going home from this battle. The Cathari boarding parties reached the Valiant just as Lisa finished her modifications to the reactor. She could hear them cutting through the hull in multiple locations, determined not to let any more humans escape their search. This time they brought portable weapons that could punch through the ship's internal barriers. Lisa sealed herself in the engineering section and activated the final phase of her plan. The reactor would explode in exactly 30 minutes, creating a fusion blast powerful enough to destroy everything within 50 miles. But Lisa had modified the containment field to direct most of that energy in a focused beam toward the two remaining Cathari ships. While the reactor built toward its planned explosion, Lisa used the remaining time to prepare a final transmission. She connected the portable data storage to the ship's emergency communication system and began uploading everything to a tight beam transmission aimed at Earth. It would take the signal several hours to reach human space, but it would carry complete information about the Cathari plan. The transmission was only half complete when Cathari soldiers began cutting through the engineering section doors. Lisa could see their cutting tools glowing white-hot as they carved through the thick metal. She had maybe 5 more minutes before they broke through. Lisa made her final preparations quickly. She recorded a personal message to go with the data transmission, explaining what had happened to the Valiant and warning about the scope of the Cathari threat. She also included her recommendation that Earth make immediate contact with the Vex Empire to prevent the war that the Cathari were trying to start. The engineering doors fell just as the data transmission completed. 6 Cathari soldiers rushed into the room, their weapons ready to kill or capture any humans they found. But Lisa was ready for them. She had used the remaining time to set up one last surprise. Hidden charges throughout the engineering section were connected to a dead man switch in her hand. If she released the switch, the charges would explode immediately, triggering the reactor explosion early and killing everyone in the room. "Stop right there," Lisa said in the few words of Cathari language she had learned from intelligence reports. The aliens paused, uncertain about what the human was planning. Lisa held up the dead man switch where they could see it, then pointed to the reactor display showing the countdown to explosion. Even alien soldiers could understand the numbers counting down toward 0. The Cathari began talking rapidly among themselves, probably trying to decide if they could capture her before she triggered the charges. Lisa used their confusion to complete her final task. With her free hand, she activated the ship's self-destruct announcement system and broadcast a message to the remaining Cathari ships. "This is Commander Lisa Martinez of the Earth vessel Valiant. You have 15 minutes to withdraw to a safe distance before this ship explodes. Any vessel remaining within 50 miles will be destroyed." The Cathari soldiers raised their weapons, but Lisa smiled grimly and loosened her grip on the dead man switch. They could kill her, but if they did, the reactor would explode immediately and take their ships with it. If they tried to capture her, she would trigger the explosion anyway. Their only choice was to retreat and let her complete her mission. Through the ship's external cameras, Lisa watched the 2 remaining Cathari vessels begin moving away from the Valiant. They were smart enough to recognize a no-win situation when they saw one, but they weren't moving fast enough to escape completely. In 12 minutes, the Valiant would become a star, and Lisa Martinez would make sure that the galaxy remembered why humans never surrender. Lisa watched the countdown timer reach its final minutes as the Cathari soldiers backed away from her slowly. They were speaking into their communication devices, probably reporting the situation to their fleet commander. She could imagine the confusion and anger on the enemy ships as they realized a single human had outmaneuvered their entire attack force. The reactor core was glowing brighter now, visible through the thick protective glass. Lisa had turned the Valiant's power source into a directed fusion weapon that would destroy both remaining Cathari ships even if they tried to retreat. But the explosion would also send the mission data toward Earth at light speed, carried by focused radio waves that could cross the galaxy. "You are one human against many Cathari," growled one of the aliens in broken English. "You cannot win." Lisa smiled and kept her finger near the dead man's switch. "I already won. The information about your secret war plans is heading to Earth right now. Your biological weapons, your fake alliance with the Vex, your plan to destroy human colonies and blame it on other species. Earth knows everything." The Cathari looked confused. They probably couldn't understand how a crippled ship with no working communication system could send information across space. Lisa wasn't going to explain the physics of using a fusion explosion as a transmission amplifier. Let them figure it out for themselves. With 5 minutes left on the countdown, the Cathari ships finally began moving away at full speed. But Lisa had calculated their maximum velocity, and she knew they couldn't escape in time. The fusion explosion would catch them both, along with any other enemy ships that might be hiding in the area. Lisa used the final minutes to send a personal message to her family on Earth. She told her parents she was proud to serve in the human fleet, and she asked them to take care of Jake Morrison and the other survivors if any were found alive. She didn't expect anyone to survive, but humans were surprisingly tough to kill completely. The Cathari soldiers were getting nervous as the countdown approached 0. One of them tried to rush Lisa and grab the dead man's switch, but she triggered a small explosive charge that filled the room with smoke and debris. When the smoke cleared, the alien was unconscious and Lisa was still holding the trigger device. 2 minutes, Lisa announced. "I suggest you find something solid to hide behind." The remaining Cathari ran from the engineering section, probably trying to reach their boarding pods and escape back to their ships. Lisa didn't try to stop them. In 2 minutes, it wouldn't matter where they went. Lisa spent her final moments thinking about her crew. Danny Torres had wanted to be a musician before he joined the fleet. Jake Morrison collected old books and read them in his spare time. Amy Collins had been engaged to marry a teacher on Mars. They were all good people who had trusted Lisa to bring them home safely. She had failed them, but their deaths would not be meaningless if the mission information reached Earth in time. The countdown reached 30 seconds. Lisa could feel the deck vibrating under her feet as the reactor approached critical overload. She had done everything possible to focus the explosion away from Earth and toward the enemy ships. The data transmission would ride the explosion's energy wave across space, carrying proof of the Cathari conspiracy to human military commanders. At 10 seconds, Lisa released the dead man switch and stepped back from the reactor controls. The explosion would happen automatically now, exactly as she had programmed it. She closed her eyes and thought about home, about the blue skies and green fields of Earth that she would never see again. The fusion reactor exploded at exactly the moment Lisa had calculated. But instead of the instant death she expected, Lisa found herself thrown against the far wall of the engineering section as the ship's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Emergency force fields had automatically activated to protect essential ship functions, giving her a few extra seconds of life. Through the force field, Lisa could see the explosion expanding outward from the reactor core. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like watching a new star being born. The focused energy beam shot through space toward the fleeing Cathari ships, moving faster than they could escape. The first enemy ship was caught by the explosion wave while trying to jump to hyperspace. Lisa saw it break apart like a toy, its pieces scattered across light years of space. The second ship lasted a few seconds longer before the fusion fire reached it and turned it into glowing particles. Lisa felt the Valiant breaking apart around her as the explosion consumed her ship from the inside out. But the mission data was already racing toward Earth, carried by radio waves amplified by the fusion blast. In 18 hours, human fleet commanders would receive complete information about the Cathari threat. New Denver and the other colonies would be warned and protected. The last thing Lisa saw was a bright white light that seemed to fill the entire universe. Then everything went dark, and Commander Lisa Martinez joined her crew in whatever comes, after death for soldiers who refused to surrender. But the story didn't end there. 3 days later, the human rescue fleet arrived to investigate the strange readings from the battle site. They found the wreckage of 4 Cathari ships and what appeared to be the remains of a human vessel. But they also found something impossible: a single life pod with a weak emergency beacon, hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. Inside the life pod they found Jake Morrison, barely alive but clutching a datapad containing backup copies of the mission information. He had managed to escape the Valiant during the confusion of Lisa's final battle, carrying proof of everything she had discovered about the Cathari plans. The rescue team also found Lisa herself, floating unconscious in a damaged spacesuit among the debris. The explosion had thrown her clear of the ship just before the Valiant was completely destroyed. She was badly injured and would need months of medical treatment, but she was alive. When Lisa woke up in the military hospital on Mars, the first thing she asked about was the mission data. The doctors told her that her information had prevented a galactic war. Earth had contacted the Vex Empire and discovered that they were peaceful traders who knew nothing about any alliance with the Cathari. The 2 species had worked together to stop the Cathari biological weapon program and capture the war criminals responsible for the attacks on human colonies. Lisa was promoted to captain and given command of the newest ship in the human fleet, the UES Defender, named after one of the escort ships lost in the battle. But she always remembered the lesson of the Valiant. Sometimes the most important victories come when everything seems hopeless, when you have nothing left but determination and the refusal to give up. The galaxy had learned something important that day. Humans might not have the most advanced technology or the largest fleets, but when they were pushed to the edge of extinction, when their backs were against the wall and defeat seemed certain, they became the most dangerous force in the universe. Because humans never surrender, never give up, and never stop fighting for what they believe is right. And that is why other species learn to respect them, fear them, and ultimately to leave them alone.